from our perspective, the definition of a certification program is one that maintains the integrity of the work and the ownership and the credit in the creator, but shifts the paradigm to allow more people, qualified practitioners, to go out and deliver the work.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Joel Irway here, and welcome to another very special episode of Experts Unleashed. I'm super excited today because we get to talk about a topic that I have been interested in for many years, probably at least 4 years. And we are going to be talking to two very special guests, the authors of the book Certifications Made Simple. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the book being held up, but I've got the authors here, Amanda Goldman-Petri and Valerie Del Grosso. And I'm excited to chat with them. They know everything about the certification model, and I'm going to treat this as kind of like a mini consulting session, so you guys can understand this, because I know it's a very lucrative model, and it's a it's a pivot from what most of you who are listening right now are probably used to doing with your courses, with your coaching programs. And it's a pivot that I want you to be aware of, because most people are blind to it. So before we dive right in, first of all, let's welcome our guests. So Amanda and Valerie, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having us. We're excited.
We are so happy to be here to talk on this topic.
Yes. So we were introduced through a mutual acquaintance, Chris Benetti, who runs my ads for my book. And we were talking. And so he turned me on to your book, and I'm like, I got to get it. I ordered it, read it, and here we are. So guys, why don't you give us a quick background about how you got into the certification model and really what the certification model is. So kind of tell us your origin story of how you got introduced into this model, and let's start there.
Sounds good. Well, Valerie, do you want to talk about what the model is, and then I can give some context into how we fell into it together?
Yeah, that's a great idea. So AGP and I go way back to 2014 or 2015 time period, doing very traditional, I'll say, things online. And in that time period, myself as the lawyer friend to coaches and her as a successful business coach, and especially like marketing genius, we were both on these kind of parallel tracks where we came across the benefits of certification models, which I'm super excited to get more into that as this interview goes on. But the certification model really turns the normal coaching and thought leader paradigm on its head. That model teaches that you want to create something that's proprietary to you, and you want to keep it real close to the chest. Only the people who are paying the most premium prices typically get the full picture of your best work. But what we've come to realize, and we'll talk about more, is that this really undermines the goal of movements and of impact, because at the end of the day, you're just one person. And a lot of coaches and thought leaders do start to fall prey to the belief that they are the only person who can use their method to get results with clients. And in doing that, they confuse kind of coaching skills plus their own magic with what really is their repeatable method. And the amazing thing about having a proprietary and repeatable method, which is the core of your certification, is that it allows you to still maintain transformative results, even if you are not the person delivering the method to end clients. From the client standpoint, the benefit is amazing, because they still get that support and information and repeatable process to get an outcome, even though they can't, or maybe do not want to, or cannot afford to work with a creator. So all of that is to say that from our perspective, the definition of a certification program is one that maintains the integrity of the work and the ownership and the credit in the creator, but shifts the paradigm to allow more people, qualified practitioners, to go out and deliver the work. And in that way, the work can explode. It can be what the creator is known for, and you can actually help so many more people, as opposed to this other paradigm where you keep it really close and only the select few get to work with it.
Absolutely. And so not only do you have that benefit of your scaling your impact, but as you can imagine, it also makes scaling financially more seamless as well. It's a very different dynamic, scaling something like a service where you're actively fulfilling work with clients, and even coaching, especially where the way that most coaches build their coaching agencies these days, where it's very built around their face and their voice. So when someone buys a coaching program from you, they tend to want to work with you directly. You might hire other coaches underneath of you, and they're still asking for you because you're the face of the brand. Whereas when you shift into this certification paradigm, you're marketing and positioning yourself not necessarily around your face and your voice, but around your genius and this methodology. And so people aren't necessarily obsessed with you and wanting access to you. They want to understand this vehicle, this method, this process. It's not necessarily important who they get it from or how they get it. And the great thing is certifications are so flexible. They could be as simple or as complicated as you want them to be. They could be as inexpensive or as expensive as you want to be. From a legal perspective, it could be as close guarded or as wide and flexible as you want it to be. So it's a very, very versatile model. And the way that we kind of fell into it was initially, when I became a coach, this was after having already built a very successful service-based industry business. I got into coaching and I was very nervous. I kind of lacked the confidence to be a coach and charge for access to me instead of to services. And so I actually went out and I got certified. I became a certified money marketing and soul coach through Kendall Summerhawk. And I kind of fell in love with the model then and there, but I felt like, I'm not big enough. I'm not ready enough. I don't have a big enough name. I don't have enough of a methodology in order to start certifying people. So I kept the model in the back of my head, but I didn't start doing it until I had enough experience in coaching that I had really fleshed out a methodology that people came to know me by. So a lot of the cash injection courses, cash injection contests that you see a lot of coaches out there running, that's actually my material. I've certified them in it. That was my first experience in running a certification program myself. And where Valerie fits in is I hired her as my IP lawyer to say, hey, Valerie, am I crazy here? Like, is this something that I can do? How do I maintain ownership of this work? Like, what does the contract look like? How do I trademark it? And after a series of certifications together, we ended up joining forces and teaching other people this model too.
I want to ask a couple of questions because in my mind, part of my lack of understanding is because I've never personally invested in certifications. So I think I think that's where so many of these questions come from me. So if because I think like in my mind, until it gets clear, the lines are still kind of blurry between coaching and certification. I'm pretty sure I understand the difference, but I think for my audience who may be feeling the same way that I do, AGP, if you don't mind me asking, when you invest in your first certification, because you said you were already a coach, then you went and you invested into Kendall Summerhawk's certification program. What drew you, like, why were you looking to get cert? Like, what was going on at that time in your life that drove you to consider certification? What were you trying to level up because you were already coaching?
Right. Well, so I think for me, what was really valuable about it was that she already had a process that was really proven to get clients results, get coaching clients results. And for me, I knew a whole lot about business, right? Like I knew how to generate traffic. I knew how to get sales. I knew how to deliver services. What I hadn't yet mastered was how to turn that into a step-by-step formula that was really repeatable for other people. And so what was really valuable for me as a new coach was being certified in a process that I knew I could trust, going out and teaching other people and seeing how she took these like really big, broad concepts like branding and sales and marketing and turned it into something that was a little bit more formulaic, so that anyone could understand it. It was almost a way of organizing my thoughts. And I think the other benefit of it was, at least for me, I was still doing services. I still had an agency at the time. And so there was also a little bit of this, I don't want to have to make the material myself type of thing. Like, I'm really, really good at marketing. I'm really, really good at sales. So I could sell just about anything. But I want to sell something that A, I don't have to create myself, yet B, I will still trust. And the way that her certification in particular was run, and this is how I do mine too, you don't just get taught the method, you also get a license to teach it, right? And you get a license to white label essentially all of the materials, the course materials, the handouts, the workbooks, all of that. And I really believe in adding a licensing component to the certifications. I think it really up levels the value. You don't necessarily have to do that. What some people will do is they'll give you a designation. I've done certifications like that as well, where Chantel Adams, she is a coach for speakers, and she teaches you how to craft your signature talk and go and speak on stages. She helps you create, little speaking reels. And I did a certification program with her where she taught me how to be a public speaker. And then I became a certified center stage speaker. And that gave me a little designation. And I got added to, her little speakers directory, but there was no white label licensing material. I couldn't go out and teach other people how to speak. With Kendall's, it was not that way. It was not just a designation. It was, okay, here's a method. You're now a master in it because I've taught you it and I've tested to make sure that you've actually mastered it. Okay, you can now go and teach it to other people as well.
Got it. Okay. So in Kendall's certification and licensing program, they're two different things, right? So that was another area that I kind of got confused by. Like, there's certification, then there's licensing. I think that it's like, so now let me kind of bring you into my situation. In my situation, I've got a methodology that's been used very successfully, thousands and thousands and thousands of customers that have enrolled in it. It's called the Power Offer. Basically teaches people how to create lead generation campaigns. And it's inexpensive, $27, but there's no licensing part there. It's meant to like sell direct to consumers, but naturally there are other copywriters and marketers who buy it just because they want to learn it, right? And then they go teach it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm considering is I think there is an opportunity for certification and licensing there, but it kind of, like, as I start to kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together, it almost, like, I don't know if it's not that if it's worth it, but it's like, okay, if I turn this into a certification program, then I have to enforce it, then licensing, then I have to, like, there's a lot of steps to it, and I think that's where I get lost. And I'm not trying to present objections. It's just, do I keep it as just, let's sell the course and whoever buys it, and whoever teaches it, it is what it is? Or,
well, I think these are very, I think, good questions, because I think these are the general questions that everyone has when they start engaging in the certification and licensing model. The things you're asking, those are the same exact questions that I asked myself when I was doing it too. So you're going down the right path. I'll have Valerie talk a little bit more about how simple, how complex it can be, making some of those judgment calls that you're talking about, and also sort of the enforcement side. But one thing that I do want to point out is, you mentioned that there's already people who are going out and teaching what you've taught them, and they're doing it without permission. And this is one of the things that we say is, people are already going to copy you, so you might as well get paid for it. The moment that you put out that this is a protected method, this is something that if you want to use, you have to be certified and licensed in, people are actually less likely to steal it, because you're sending out this message that I intend to enforce this. I am claiming that I own this, right? So just sending that message already sort of decreases the likelihood that it's going to be stolen. But the other piece of that is those people who would have gone and taken it are now more likely to actually just go and take the certification and the licensing and pay you and then go do what they were already going to do anyway. So if they're going to take it, you might as well get paid for it.
Yeah. I do want to add that I really like the model because so I want to make whether you're listening right now and you already have made this distinction or not, I'm going to assume you haven't, because it took me a while to kind of come up with this distinction as a marketer, as someone who knows how to create products and sell them. There's a clear distinction for who wants to buy a certification program versus who wants to buy like an end user program and learn it on their own. And this is what gets me excited, is because it's, as marketers and as people who teach marketing, we always preach, like, sell to one customer, sell to one customer, sell to one customer. That here we are, I sell a marketing and training program that basically anybody can use, right? So it's kind of like I'm not even following what I tell everybody. But when you like a certification program now then shifts that. So in my instance where I'm selling marketing, it gets a little bit confusing, but where I'm selling marketing, right? If I were to create a certification program for marketers, now I've got that solo avatar. Now I've got that one specific person that I can teach this to. And instead of just the broad business owner who has any type of product, any type of service using my method. And yeah, there's going to be people who get success there. But now imagine if I framed this and I repackaged this and I created a certification program, sold it to marketers. Now they get certified, and there could be a certified, marketer who only serves life coaches, who uses my methodology, who only serves life coaches, or who only serves business coaches, or who only serves, agency owners or whatever. That's where I think the biggest distinction is that now the certification serves the marketing community or the practitioners, as what you were saying, and then they can go out and now serve the general public and specialize in those niches. That was the light bulb moment for me, because for the longest time I was having a hard time differentiating. Well, I've already got the program, I've already got the IP, and I'm selling it, and people are already buying it. Like, I was having a really difficult time understanding who the two different avatars are. And that's what it was the end user and the practitioner. And you're basically creating a level above where you now serve as the IP owner, and the level below you is the practitioner. And then the level below you is the level below that is now like kind of the end user, the broad public. And so it's almost like you're just creating another layer, and you keep elevating up. And now you're training people to go for advocates and practitioners.
Yeah, and I think, Valerie, we've come up with a sort of a metaphor there with, universities, professors, students, or like the universities that create the doctors who serve the patients. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and then get into some of the complexities of making the decisions around how to approach it?
Yes. So I'm like jumping out of my seat over here listening to you, Joel, because it touches on how holistic certifications can be, and some of the misconceptions about how complex they have to be and all of that. So I love the fact that you read the book and made the distinction about the fact that it actually helps solve a common marketing problem, which is to have that more specific end client. Now, in your situation, that would be another practitioner in your field. And this gets me, I'm going to answer this question, but we're going to come around like the back way to it. So one of the most amazing things that that certifications set apart from any kind of other common offer that's out there is it's an alternative ethical way to scale. And what I mean by that is a lot of times we think about getting big and getting important and having movements with getting further away from the creator and from the people who care about and are stewards of the work. And we see this in super highly leveraged group programs that approximates the appearance of support, but a lot of times there's really not the support that's actually needed.
Amen.
Yes. Okay.
Amen.
Yeah. The thing about that is it's really good for the person who sells it, right? They're one person serving many. A lot of times there's premium price tags, but it burns out. And it burns out for them eventually because it does sacrifice the results. And we all know that results sell. And so over time, we're diminishing the results. And we're kind of spoiling the pool of end users, the consumer buyers who are skeptical. We talk to people all the time. Everybody's been burned by the guru who was a great marketer, but not so great at delivery. So the certification itself is so amazing because it solves this problem of someone stealing your IP, innocently or not, which I'll come back to in a second, and kind of going out and doing a bad job. Because you know what the other hallmark of those highly leveraged group programs are is a lot of times it's somebody who kind of doesn't know the material in depth. They took your program, they got the tip of the iceberg, they have maybe familiarity with your method, but they don't know the next piece, which is what you would tell someone if you were purposely wanting them to go out under your name and deliver your services. So a very specific example of that is, I could tell you what the profit first method is because I read the book. But what I couldn't do is sit in a session with a client, see that they're having an issue, and come up with a way through that issue. Now, if I talk to the creator of Profit First, because he's teaching me, he's certifying me, he's going to say, hey, when you come across this issue with a client, this is what you could do. Usually it's a result of this. Here's another tool to help them get across the finish line. That piece is the certification framework. You are not teaching your certification framework in your $27 end consumer program. The power offer methodology may be in there, but the reason why it exists, the problems it overcomes, and the experience you have in sitting in session that caused you to develop it in the first place is not there. Which means that the well-meaning people who don't realize they shouldn't be ripping you off and reteaching it are actually out there doing a bad job. And that hurts the industry. So they're out there doing a bad job, not even realizing it necessarily, makes it more difficult for the end user to get results. And then that particular coach or provider says, geez, I really need to ramp up my revenue. Let me create a leverage group program where the results are going to be even more diluted. Mm-hmm. That is the ordinary way to scale, is to take you and try to make you be in more places at once. And from like a physics standpoint, we're not doing that. But in a certification standpoint, this is the end game. And so part of the reason why we framed the book the way that we did is people have a lot of misconceptions about how complex the certification needs to be, how established they need to be to offer one. And so what ends up happening is usually we're talking to people who've already gone the guru route and are burning out and want to burn it all down because no one's talking about it from the very beginning. Like on day one, think about creating a methodology that's repeatable. Practice it. This is going to create the foundation for you to have a super sustainable business that also creates a legacy where you're not, having to be involved in every client transformation that happens. And the kind of two end pieces of that. Number one, the certification does not have to be super complex. And in fact, because we're talking to people who are really steeped in the material, but maybe at this point are not feeling super close to it anymore because it's a problem they've long solved, we don't want to create you have a situation where you're having to do more of it. We don't want to take one problem and turn it into another problem. And so it may make sense that you're more on the rubber stamp side of certification, where maybe the methodology is not that complex and you can use self-study materials and simple Q&A to certify. There are other people who want to be very elaborate and have certification week and you've got to coach and turn in the hours and all of that. It's really up to the creator, but there are many ways to make this as palatable for you as possible because most people are running a whole business and they are supporting clients at the point where they make this decision to offer a certification. So all of that is a long-winded way of saying, I hope that anyone who's out there thinking, these gurus are saying stuff that I'm never going to say. Doesn't feel right, doesn't feel like me, and therefore there's a cap on what my business can be. Don't fall into believing that. Certification and understanding your work is the alternative. And then the other piece of it is don't let what you think a certification is and how much management it's going to take deter you from scaling in this way. The book is called Certifications Made Simple because that was the biggest objection that we found is people are like, I'm going to have to essentially start over. And that is just not true.
I actually think, let me see if I put it in there. In the resources section, I might have added in a link to my certification crash course. If it's not in there, I can give you the link, Joel. But I actually recorded myself creating a certification in 2 hours because I wanted to prove that it didn't have to be complicated. My very first certification, I definitely went the more complicated route because I didn't know what I was doing. And I was still, I think, of the perspective that I wanted to have a little bit more control. I wanted to, enforce it more. I wanted to just be a larger presence in the program. And I also was selling it at more high ticket. So I ran it live. All of the teaching sessions were live. The qualification process where I'm testing them to make sure that they're actually, real masters at the work was more complicated. They had to do like practice sessions with other coaches. They had to like submit proof of doing all this homework. They had to actually go out and do cash injection campaigns in their own business and then send me screenshots of the money that they had made from these cash injections. Then they had to go and do that with at least 2 clients, and they had to send me screenshots of the clients' results. We had this whole spreadsheet that was tracking all of the money. We had literally clients, it was that cohort, I think, made a combined $1 million in like 30 days or something like that doing these cash injection campaigns. And I had screenshot proof of everything. So it was this whole big, thing to pull off this initial certification. Well, contrast that with how I do certifications now. I run a Facebook ad to like an initial $37 certification. When you're checking out, there's order bumps for, I think, 3 or 4 other certifications. You purchase that, you know me, I'm the AOV queen, right? There's always upsells and downsells. So then there's there's like a 1-click upsell for another certification. There's like 1-click downsell for another certification. Like there's all the certifications. And then there's this hub website that has all the certifications. And when they purchase, they go into a portal. It tags them as they're going through the material. Releases the quiz when it says that they've gone through the material. The quiz is set up to automatically determine if they've passed or not. Once they've done that, it sends them to a master licensing agreement. That's all automated. Literally, all I have to do is countersign the licensing agreement. That's the most amount of work that I have to do now. So it can be very simple.
I do want to jump in and just,
Yeah.
if I could say, this model that Amanda uses really speaks to the simplicity and how narrowly tailored you can make a tool. But it also speaks to the fact that certification buyers just have a totally different psychology because the outcome is that they're getting the skill set and they're getting the identity as opposed to something that takes a lot longer, and that leaves a lot more to chance and in their hands to follow through and complete the end program. So going back to your point about, this is a different audience to serve, it's also a different audience who are eager buyers as well.
Yeah, no, I could probably count on one hand the amount of refund requests I've had from certification buyers in like 10 years. They're completely and utterly different in how they approach the material and what it is that they are looking for in terms of how they find value.
Well, let me ask you this then, Amanda. Which one do you prefer? Going higher ticket or lower ticket, more automated? Higher ticket, high touch, lower ticket, more automated with certification route?
I think that's a question that really depends upon the person. For me personally, this is just the case in all of my businesses, not just with certifications, with books, with courses, with anything that I do. I prefer lower ticket course, certification, template, licensing, book type of offers where I'm just doing a very good job explaining the methodology in a manner that's very accessible. And then I just sell volume. That works for me because I personally do not prefer to be the face and the voice of of a brand where everyone wants access to me, and feeling like I'm industry famous is like not something that's necessarily important to me. Not everyone is like that. Some people really enjoy those live experiences. Some people really, really enjoy hosting retreats and doing coaching calls with clients. It's just not my personality. And so I don't think that the right thing to do is pick your certification model based on what someone else has done. I think the better approach is to say, who am I as a person? What is my personality like? What's the business model that I enjoy? And then match your certification with that, because they are so incredibly flexible. You really can tailor it extremely well to who you are as a person and your vision for your business and life.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a great, it's a great thing for everybody to kind of go through. And like, I have to do this all the time with my clients, and I'm very much like you, Amanda. While I probably have a larger brand than I ever thought I would set out to be, it just kind of happened because I had staying power. It's not like I ever like hit the scale bro button and spent hundreds of millions of dollars on ads and grew this brand presence. It was more so I've just stuck around for a long time. But I'm very much like you. Like I don't have a strong desire to be, you know, Mr. Social Media Marketing guy all over the place. I want my products to do the talking. And I think that's, if I kind of distill this model into like one sentence, I think that's what most people are gonna really. I think that's one thing that can really hit home is certifications kind of let your products do the talking, and let your certified members help grow your own brand, like through promoting your stuff, and maybe not necessarily directly promoting, but utilizing your material with your name on it. And I want to ask you another question, which is along the lines of, when you have these conversations trying to explain to someone a certification model, do you get a lot of confusion? Like, because there's layers, like in essence, this is creating another layer
Mm.
for the product owner, for the methodology owner. Do you get a lot of confused people, or do they get it right away?
Well, what we've noticed is that there's really there's only one other person that I can even think of in this industry who even teaches the certification model. So this industry is definitely in a state of education around what this model is and how to use it. Our hope, obviously, is to fill that gap in the marketplace and to be a resource so that people are more educated about what this model is. But no, because it is so new, and because there isn't a lot of competitors out there for us, there are a lot of questions that people have about it. And I've also found that even lawyers sometimes don't even fully understand how the model works too. So one of the things that we do in one of our courses is we have sort of a visual diagram that shows you on the lower end of the scale is the licensing portion, and licensing can look like this. And then on the highest end of the scale is the super duper meta certifications where like you're certifying people to go and certify others. And then everything else in between. And we kind of explain to you how those pieces layer on to each other. Valerie, is there anything you want to add on to that?
I would say I think people have a generalized idea. In my experience doing the legal part of this, the most head-scratching distinction is between what we internally call a designation versus a certification. And Amanda touched on that a little bit, where, you could think of like the good housekeeping seal of approval does not mean that the person receiving it can go out and give other people the good housekeeping seal of approval. It's more about making a statement who you are and what type of training you've received or what qualities you have as, a business person. So there's a lot of public speaking designations that we would not consider for our purposes a certification, where the intention is for you to go out and become a practitioner of the method with other end clients. But aside from that, I think generally speaking, people understand certification is some sort of credential, and that's a good starting point. On the flip side of that, though, a lot of times when we think about credentials, we think about, regulation, we think about there's some sort of official body. That's where there's some confusion, but not necessarily about what constitutes a certification, I would say.
I would
So
say we're
I
yep, go ahead.
I can share my screen and I can show you this diagram that I'm talking about, and that'll give it some perspective. You'll be able to see it, obviously, if you're watching it on YouTube, and then I'll just kind of do my best to explain it for those who are watching on podcasts. Is that cool?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, so if you see my screen here, this is what we call the content continuum. And essentially, this is us organizing the way that you can allocate rights to other people for your content, from what is medium sophistication to like what's highly sophisticated. We consider things like courses to be very low sophistication because you're not giving people rights. Like they can they can consume it. That's about it. They can't do anything else with it. So at the medium level of sophistication is when you are giving an allowance to other people, a license to use something. Whether that's an idea, a framework, a tool, a piece of content. A little bit more sophisticated than that is where you're giving them a license to go and sell it. So not only can you use this tool for yourself, but you can go ahead and sell it and your clients can use it too, right? A step ahead of that is a certification where you're giving them approval to essentially state that they have a relationship with your methodology, right? The designation is that they can say, hey, I'm certified in this thing. Now, when we talk about a certification, typically you're layering onto that, there's some sort of licensing right there. So as you go up in sophistication, usually it's an adding on, right? Like at licensing, there's no designation usually, there's no certification, there's no badge. But when you're getting a certification, typically there is a badge, there is a licensing right. And then at the highest level of sophistication is where you are saying you now have authority over this framework in a similar way as I do, right? You have the license to go and license other people in this material. You have the license to go and certify other people in this material, right? You are certified to go and certify. That's what I said. It gets, pretty meta up at the top. So that's kind of the continuum. Licensing all the way down at the bottom, pretty medium sophistication, certification somewhere in the middle, and then being like a certifying body who license people to go and license or certifies people to go and certify others is at the highest level of sophistication.
Okay. Yeah, that's when you walk through it, it starts to make sense, and then it's almost like as soon as I start to think about it again, it gets murky, right? And I think the idea behind where I get confused is like, okay, if I'm learning the material, is that only for me to be able to use on my own, or do I need to pay again if I'm going to go use it for other clients? Like that's where it starts to get kind of murky, and it's almost like, do I even want to fight that battle? Like for me personally, it's like, okay, I get the idea of creating a licensing or a certification program. Like they're certified for my methodology. And in my mind, if I want to keep it simple, like you're certified to use it, go use it however you want, right? As long as you're certified, like now you want to use it for yourself, you want to use it for others, like cool. I think just keeping it simple that way is what might make it.
That's what I do. There's other people who definitely have more restrictions in their contracts. I think even Kendall Summerhawk requires that you include her trademark or her copyright on every document that you use. I don't do that because I just prefer simplicity. Like simplicity is sanity, in my opinion. So I don't really restrict much. All I say is you can't write a book with my material. Like if anyone's going to write about my method, it is going to be me. But beyond that, you can tailor the material, you can teach it to whoever you want. And I also don't do like annual, what do they call that? Like an annual relicensing or an annual registration type of thing. Some people do that where every single year you need to maintain that designation, you need to maintain that licensing right. I don't do that. I do lifetime rights just because, again, I really prefer the simplicity. But again, that really speaks to don't design your certification or your licensing program based on how you think it should be done. Decide what is going to make the most sense for your personality, your business model, your lifestyle desires, and then just tailor it to that because it is so extremely flexible. Like in terms of in terms of marketing, it's as simple as just explaining what's included, right? Just like any other package. And then in terms of legal, it's just as simple as making sure that it's explained in the contract.
I do want to jump in on that because I think there's kind of two parts to it as far as the enforcement. And this might not be perfectly obvious, so I'll just say it because I think more people need to be talking about this. We live in this sharing world where we feel like if it's out there for one purpose, it's out there for any purpose. And we carry that into the relationship when we buy something as an end customer. That, hey, I paid for it, I can do whatever I want with it. In reality, in the US, the default legal position is the opposite of that. Unless you've been specifically granted a right to use it for a specific end use, you are actually infringing. And that is shocking to people. And I'll give you a good example. I have a friend who is a highly successful parenting coach who used her newborn photos in her marketing and got a cease and desist from the photographer. Even though she paid thousands of dollars for these beautiful photos, they're herself and her kid in the photo. She did not pay for those commercial rights. And that's shocking to people. But those are the protections that we provide to creators. Most people don't know that. And that includes creators. And so people think I bought it, I can do whatever I want with it. And so a ton of infringement that goes on is really innocent. And so just having the conversation, perhaps on the sales page, you might update yours, Joel, to say right below the button, if you want to reteach this material, click here for licensing options, so that people register that this is not for any kind of use. You might be surprised who starts reaching out. It doesn't mean you have to license it, but it just acknowledges this reality and starts the discussion of it inside the industry. For anyone who is selling content or inside a portal or whatever, you can also make a gentle statement in your welcome video, like, hey, I'm so glad you're here. This is for your personal use. There's a lot more to know if you want to be a practitioner, but I have an option for that. So come forward and do it. Very practical protections that just have the conversation and can minimize a lot of the unknowing. It's very different when you're talking about someone who's an intentional infringer, but the law makes it really easy to enforce against those people. So in terms of enforcement, it's a lot less than you might expect because a ton of it is practical. A ton of it is just a matter of adjusting your contract. And as your methodology builds its own momentum in the marketplace, your audience is going to end up being not only an army of brand advocates, but also pretty militant about protecting your stuff from people who are using it in unauthorized ways. There is a little element also that not everything about your methodology is necessarily protectable. But when you go about creating this, and especially working with us, we'll help you identify. Nobody loves to enforce, but you don't have to be enforcing everything. And so it's also just another practical element of there's only going to be certain things and certain types of unauthorized uses that would be worth your attention anyway.
Yeah, that makes.
Yeah, and I will say the amount of enforcement I've had to do has decreased since I've used certifications because people know it signals to them that they don't have the right to go and teach this to other people. And if they want to, then they need to purchase. We've had clients who, before their certifications were even done, they started utilizing that language on their pages, in their footers, and also in their client portals in like their welcome video, saying, just for the record, this is for your personal use. If you want to use this with other clients, then please reach out. And they've started generating wait lists of potential certification buyers before the material is even created.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. And you know, the the next question that comes up, and I'm sure this comes up a lot because when you're training practitioners, right, you're training essentially business owners. So how often do you get the objection of, or the question, do my certification programs have to train them on how to get clients, or do I have to give them leads? Does that ever come up? I'm sure AGP sounds like based on your reaction, you've heard that a couple of times.
Yeah, I have heard that question before, and we always say teach to the level that you feel like you're capable of supporting. If that is not, your forte, you can say that and just don't include it in your certification.
It is also an opportunity for those who want that to work with you again. And, I talked about the fact that certifications is kind of an alternative ending to your life cycle, or like that capstone project, to use the education metaphor again. But one of the big misconceptions about certification is that it's really not the end of the road for your practitioners. Usually this is the start of a professional relationship with you, which could be some type of professional organization. It could be ongoing masterminds or tracks. And so this is a way to not only minimize what you have to put in your certification to begin with, which means less overwhelm, more likely completion, but also to create additional programs that you desire to offer to solve some of those issues, like how do you turn this skill into a business, or how do you turn this skill into a position with another organization. And so I would say, from my perspective, and when I counsel creators on making their certifications, I really like to have the certification itself be very narrow, because all that stuff about building a business is maybe in your situation it's different because you are in that business. But for people teaching other types of materials, they're not going to be expert at it, and they're probably still going to have to command a premium price to teach it, even though it's not really the heart and soul of the certification.
Yeah, like I could imagine someone who is a health and fitness expert certifying other health and fitness, like certifying a fitness trainer. They're not necessarily a business expert. So
Mhm.
they might be able to create a certification that is narrowly focused on those skills and helping people, become really great fitness trainers that get results for the end users. But they might not be able to support on the business side.
Got it. Yeah, I think this is probably a blind, not maybe not a blind spot for me, because I know that this market exists, obviously, but when you think of creating marketing campaigns, you always try to, what's the highest value that you can possibly do? And obviously the highest value is doing absolutely everything for whatever that customer can possibly do. And it's oversold at that point. And to me, I have not a hard time, but I have to recenter my focus on, there's a huge desire and a huge demand for people to learn systems, like to learn, to become a practitioner, right? It's like, that's why you go to university. That's why you go to school, right? It's like, they're not teaching how to get business in school. They're teaching how to do, maybe they're not even teaching how to do certain things, but they're teaching the broad concepts, right? And so it was certification is very specific. Like, this is how you execute. It's almost like the I don't want to call it the executioner, but like the implementer, right? It's like you're training them on how to implement a certain thing to get a very specific result. And I think I just underestimate how large that market is, and the value that people place on their own confidence in their own ability to execute something.
I mean, you know how big the university college
Yeah.
market is, right? Okay, yeah, that's how big the certification market is.
Well,
So
that's
that's
it. And
essentially what this is. It's an alternative to formal education.
Yep.
And the people on this call probably cannot imagine being employees or being the practitioners anymore. The reality is, running teams and, in my own life, building systems and running people through them and managing high volume in a law practice. There is a very substantial part of the population that values having the credential, not only for the confidence, but because it very specifically tells them what to do. I hate to be told what to do. I love to figure it out by feel and by practice and by testing, but that is actually a pretty rare personality type.
Hmm.
Those people are probably not your audience, but there's plenty of others who would love to know, what's in here and why is it there, and let me go out and just do something that I know is going to work.
Yeah. And I will say I also think that certifications and licensing, I believe, are going to be on the rise as online education continues to increase in accessibility, and formal education continues to become more and more expensive.
Yeah, I mean, they're already very, very popular in certain industries and certain niches, like cybersecurity and information technology. Like there's a good billion certifications. It's almost like certain markets have become oversaturated with it, but those are also professionally, not to knock our industry, but like those are run by, I don't mean to call us non-professionals, but those are run
No,
by
we actually have
larger.
a whole series that we've done about, is coaching actually a profession? Well, actually, it doesn't meet the qualifications.
Yeah. But I mean, these certifications that I'm talking about that are so saturated, they are run by larger governing bodies that are university types, right? And they're selling individual certifications. And I also think that some of my blind spots are due to the fact that I've just been buried in the internet marketing and coaching niche, which is a very tiny bubble of the larger market. And so I'm jaded and I'm blinded by the reality of larger
Mm.
market principles. And so that's really where I'm coming from, is like,
Well, and I think, speaking to the jaded aspect, I think a lot of people, especially in this industry, feel the same way. And there is not a lot of places for them to go with those feelings, because I think a lot of people who are true entrepreneurs, who have been business owners, they would probably agree that if you look at any MBA curriculum, it's BS. Like, you don't learn how to actually be a business owner and entrepreneur. You don't actually learn how to market your business, grow your business using an MBA program most of the time. And then we already talked about a lot of the limitations that arise with the coaching model. Oftentimes people do become jaded when they hire coaches, because there is this huge push to leverage and to scale and to pull away from working with the end user. And then you end up having all of these big coaching companies that are making millions of dollars, but there's a lot of unhappy customers. And where I see the certification model fitting in is creating an opportunity for these business owners and these entrepreneurs to get education that is very well thought out, that is very intentional, that is crafted very methodically, and actually feeling like they got a valuable education out of it.
yep. Yeah, it's interesting because, when you sell to the end user, you're going to get, because you're selling to the broad market, right? It might be getting them a very specific result, which is fine. This is my case. But you're always going to get the people like that will say, oh, well, it didn't work for me, because they're ultimately having to implement on their own, but they don't have a practitioner who's helping coach them. Like that's just the nature of courses, like the DIY courses, in itself. And so I'm very appealed by the certification model. I'm still not 100% clear how I might transition my course into a certification without cannibalizing the course, or like, do you sell both at the same time? Can I sell the course and the certification at the same time, or would that be conflicting, cannibalizing each other?
I'm
That's a question.
very in favor, if you desire to do it, to keep selling the course. And there's really two reasons for that. Going to my earlier point about, we don't want to overwhelm your practitioners. You don't need to download your brain for them to be able to be competent and get results. So we want to have a narrowly tailored, I'm going to say like bare minimum viable kind of methodology that is repeatable and will get the results. But there's going to be a bunch of other stuff, because you've been doing it the longest and you developed it, that is your competitive advantage as the most experienced practitioner in the marketplace. And so one thing I've recommended to clients who are feeling a certain kind of way about how does that work? I'm certifying competitors, I'm staying in the marketplace, I'm still selling the end course. How can all of these things coexist? And one answer to that is there may be something in particular that you despise doing nowadays. Could be you don't want to work one-on-one, or you don't want to work with people who are in the influencer space. There's channels, there's end clients, and there's offer models that you might not want to do anymore. And those are the only uses that your certified practitioners can do. So in that way, you wouldn't be necessarily directly competing. At the end of the day, no matter what happens, with AI included, content that's good will always survive. But the world is awash in information, and people are still not necessarily getting results. There's going to be the ones who can do it on their own and follow the course, and they want to pay that price point, and they're good with that. But ultimately, more people are more often served by having the material plus that human element, and you're just one human. Having all those practitioners out there really takes this in the direction of the greater good for more results. And at least with my clients, I have not had anyone say, I don't want to certify because I just want to get the course and just do it myself and leave it alone. Most people have a good result. They want to be out there shouting it from the rooftops. And I've never had a client report back to me that because the course is available for sale, let's say in a DIY format, that it's interfering with their ability to get clients who want that human piece of it. So
yeah, and
definitely
I'll
from a
say,
legal standpoint, you're good, but
personally, I do encourage my certification clients to change the name of the material. If they're going to create a course and I do have the course available in addition to the certification, I do explain to them market confusion and the importance of being able to distinguish between different practitioners and create your own unique positioning. And so I do tell them that there is something to be said about taking my framework, taking my material, and then creating your own unique branding around it. So that is something that I encourage. So that's one thing that I want to say. The other thing I want to say is in terms of offering the course and the certification separately at the same time, I find that a lot of times your certification buyers come from course buyers, people who have purchased the course, said, wow, I really love this. I can see how other people could use this. I've gotten results from it. Oh, he offers it as a certification. I want that.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Well, this has been fantastic. So the book is called Certifications Made Simple, right? Where can they go buy it?
Certificationsmadesimple.com.
Easy to remember. Good branding. This has been a fantastic conversation. Amanda, Valerie, thank you so much for hopping on and explaining and answering my questions. I'm hoping that it at least turns the light bulb on for many other people. And from a marketing standpoint, it is now all about selling to a completely different avatar, teaching the same stuff, but you're selling to the practitioner who wants to go implement your teachings, not necessarily to the end user. One of these days, I've been saying this. I've even told my email list that I'm doing it, and I've had people raise their hand, and I just haven't pulled the trigger, more so because of just confusion of how I differentiate all of it. But it's just, I will be doing it one day. I promise. I will be doing it one day.
Well, how about this? Shoot us a message if other questions come up, okay?
Okay. I appreciate it. All right. So where can they, obviously we can go to certificationsmadesimple.com. Where else can they find your stuff?
Yeah, if you go to createcertifications.com, that kind of explains our whole process around creating certifications, and it has there's a link at the top that says certification resources, and it has a whole directory of all of our certification courses and trainings and that type of thing. So yeah, the two best places are certificationsmadesimple.com to get the book, and then createcertifications.com, which is the website.
Awesome. We'll link to that in the show notes. AGP, Valerie, thank you so much for hopping on today. It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed our conversation, and I hope that we can chat again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.